both before and during construction. Like many other similar projects, the Canadian Pacific Railway had to deal with land speculation. For example, at the time the route was originally proposed by Sanford Fleming to cross the Rocky Mountains by way of the Yellowhead Pass, land speculators bought up land along the potential right-of-way in the now provinces of Saskatchewan and Alberta. The arrival of the railway in Winnipeg in 1881 set off what has been described as one of the greatest land booms in North American history. When Cornelius Van Horn became general manager of the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1881, one of his first tasks was to issue notice that the town sites on the prairies would be chosen by the railway and the railway alone, without regard to any private interests whatsoever. The decision to choose a more southerly route for the railway was made in part because the land in the south was mostly unclaimed, and this would give the railway greater freedom to place the route. It may not be surprising, then, that land speculation had everything to do with the location of the terminal on the banks of the Columbia River, between Rogers Pass in the Selkirk Mountains to the east and Eagle Pass in the Gold Mountains to the west. Arthur Stanhope Farwell was a civil engineer and surveyor who had worked with Walter Moberly's survey party and thus knew the region well. In 1883, Farwell almost certainly knew that the route of the railway would be through Rogers Pass. He also knew where on the Columbia River would be the most favorable location to place the crossing. So on October 20th, 1883, Farwell applied to the provincial government of British Columbia for a land grant of 20 miles in length on each side of the Columbia and 4 miles back. But in 1871, British Columbia's terms of union with the Dominion of Canada stipulated that 20 miles of land on each side of the railway's right-of-way would belong to the railway. The CPR believed that they had full title to the land that Farwell applied for and refused to purchase it from him. Still, Farwell went ahead and established the town of Farwell. The main business street of Farwell's settlement was Front Street, along the river. During railway construction in 1885, a business district sprang up quickly. Soon there were 12 saloons, about 8 hotels, 4 or 5 brothels, 3 general stores, 2 dance halls, a doctor's office, drugstore, barber, blacksmith, tinsmith, and butcher. The J. Fred Hume and Company's general store was one of the prominent buildings on Front Street. The town took on a Wild West appearance and character. The Northwest Mounted Police did establish a barracks, cells, and stable at the top of the hill above the new town site. Nevertheless, Farwell became known for its brothels. In 1900, more than 50 different women were charged with offenses related to prostitution. The madams, or brothel owners, were generally charged up to $20 for each offense, a considerable sum at the time, but probably just considered a business expense. There continued to be active brothels up until after World War II. A forest fire swept through the town on May 7th, 1885, and destroyed many of the buildings. But by the end of the month, they were mostly rebuilt. The emphasis was on getting buildings up quickly, so as not to lose out on the trade during the railway construction boom. With the establishment of Revelstoke, Farwell declined. By the 1920s, there were very few business buildings remaining on Front Street. Today, Front Street is entirely residential, and most of the current buildings were constructed after the 1950s.